Welcome, everyone. It's 9 a.m. and start time for the Digital Learning Design Lab launch. I want to make sure and remind everybody that this is in real time, August the 4th, 2020. And the reason we want to point that out during the day is because school districts may decide that they want to use part or all of this day for future professional development. We will be placing these recordings up on our webpage on the professional learning portal that we're launching today simultaneously. And this is the intro. We have 30 minutes for today's introduction. And if I can, I'm going to figure out how to change my slides. And the panelists that we have with us, we're very happy that Dr. Marty Parker, the Chief Digital Officer at Kentucky Department of Education, and Mr. Tom Cochran, the Superintendent at Johnson County Schools, and our KVEC Board Chair are with us. We appreciate them for taking the time, and any questions that folks have as we go through the day, please use the chat function and get those questions to us. If we cannot respond to those today because of time, we will respond to those as we collect them and move on through the day. But Marty, if you wouldn't mind, if you could introduce yourself, and then we'll ask Tom to briefly introduce himself as well.
I am more than happy to introduce myself. Hi, my name is Marty Parker. I will start off by saying I absolutely love partnering and working with KVEC and the KVEC team. Every design that you put on the table is just so engaging and so fun to help move us forward. It's extremely exciting to be here with you today. Just a real quick background check. I am a former classroom teacher, former district administrator, and have been at the Kentucky Department of Education in a couple of different capacities for about 13 or 14 years now. And so I'm our Chief Digital Officer, and I get to focus on, and I love to say that I have the best job at the Kentucky Department of Education, by the way. I get to focus on not just the technologies, the blinky lights and bits and bytes and things, but I get to focus on us, our leaders, our teachers, and our students actually using the technologies. I'm a husband, and my most important job that I have is I'm a father of 5 Kentucky public school kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Tom?
Thank you, Dr. Hawkins. I want to echo a lot of what Dr. Parker said about working with KVEC. We've been blessed. Johnson County's been very blessed to be part of the co-op, and I've gained personally a great deal of insight by working with all the staff, and especially you, Jeff, with education and life itself. So we appreciate you, and we appreciate this opportunity to be here and what you're doing to share with everyone. Briefly, my name is, as Dr. Hawkins says, Tom Cochran. I'm currently superintendent at Johnson County Schools. This is just finished my 22nd year of education, all in Johnson County. Actually, born here. Come from a long line of educators, beginning with my grandparents. Both my grandmas were food service workers, chefs, as I like to call them. And my mom's Head Start director or Head Start teacher and family service worker. My dad was an FFA teacher. My brother's lifelong educator. So I really didn't have any options. That was been my goal to be an educator from birth. And so I've spent my whole life right here in Johnson County Schools. I've been at every level, elementary, middle, and high. Started out as a special educator, and I've been an administrator at all 3 levels, as I said, and just finished my 3rd year as superintendent. And Marty said that he's very lucky to have the best job in KDE. I'm gonna one up him. I have the best job in the world right here as a superintendent of Johnson County.
That's great. So we have 2 really quality panel members who have a depth of knowledge about the topic for today. And I'm going to outline the agenda for today pretty briefly. And before I go through the agenda, I would just mention that thanks to Marty and the other team members at the Department of Education, they approached all the cooperatives in Kentucky and asked if co-ops would like to partner with them on creating these design labs regionally. I really appreciate that forward thinking, and of course we are proud and happy to be able to partner and collaborate on what I believe is very critical work. So the organization that the department had established really falls into 4 big categories or topics. The first that we're going to cover a bit more in depth at 9:30 is access at home. How do learners, parents, caregivers, and community members access some of the opportunities for learning at home? The next section, we're going to begin at 10:45, and that's about learning management system consistency and how that can be used at a school level or a district level to increase learning for our students. At 12:30 to 1:30, we'll have folks who will focus and hone in on people and supports, because we know that people are the most critical element no matter what initiative we decide that we're going to take up. And the fourth one is digital learning experiences. What kind of strategies have been in place? What are folks doing? What can they do more of that is working effectively? How can we collaborate and share so that we provide access and opportunities for learners? And the fifth bullet that we have added to that is, how do we help this learning, this professional learning, take place over time as it evolves? And for that reason, we are launching today a digital professional learning portal that can be accessed through the holler. We'll give you contact or a web address for that throughout the day. But we see that as a living tool that will last for years to come. And that will allow us the opportunity for educators anytime, anywhere to log onto that page, look at these 4 big categories, and then be able to refine their search so that they can get what they need for their classroom, their subject area, their grade level, and their particular need at that moment in time. We also want that page, that location, that entry, that portal, to be able to solicit new solutions from our practitioners across the region. So we want those contributions to be able to help inform the work that all of us do, believing that when we all know what we all know, then we're all better off for it. And we're going to lead a lot of this work today with some what we believe are critical questions to the process. And this first question is about crisis response versus transformation. Winston Churchill is often, the quote is attributed to him often, that you should never let a good crisis go to waste. And many of us across the state and across the country have been working on digital learning for years. COVID has caused all of us to think about that in a much more fast-paced. So the question that is framed at the bottom of that, and in this case, we'll ask Marty to go first and then Tom, but how can we be responsive to the current crisis brought on by the pandemic and move toward a transformational education system that fundamentally increases access and opportunity for learners? And Marty, I'm going to kind of say that we probably have about 5 minutes for a response. And then Tom, it'll be after Marty, you.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, I thank you so much. And this leadoff question is perfect to get us set up to dig into designing, right? And so obviously when you think about transformation and you think about insects or animals, metamorphosis is that change or that dramatic change in form and appearance. And I love the juxtaposition between the big ideas of crisis response, which as leaders, we are all called to step up to do and engage in and lead through our current public health crisis. But on the other end of that, and all the way through, we believe with the structures that we have in Kentucky, and the fact that we've been leading in so many areas across the country, in terms of the ability to really dig into transformation and that dramatic change in what learning looks like, is important to us as we figure out where we are right now and how to make the right decisions for this current time. And so increasing access and opportunity for learners is the key point of this question, I believe. And so digging in on the big ideas, and if you've been around me at all, you know that I've wholeheartedly believe that while I'm a teacher and I love teaching, the art and science behind teaching really gets at the belief that teaching doesn't always equal learning, to me, right? And so if we understand that and we target, have laser focus on learning and understanding that if we focus on learning and what our students are learning day by day, we have an opportunity to leverage all of the technologies. I'm a big believer that in general, we have the technologies, low cost or no cost technologies, anything's possible. I think that if we take a hold of that, wrap our arms fully around that, then we can get to this big idea to onboard quickly and level up, focused on learning, and designing experiences for our kids that, while we're separated maybe from an in-person or physical perspective, we can be extremely more connected, focused on learning than we ever have before. So we can leverage digital connectivity as much as possible. We know that some of our families and homes do not have the best connectivity, but we can gear towards different levels of access that, again, close gaps for us. I take us back real quickly. I'll take us back to the spring and understand that some of the learning design that we put in place, we weren't ready for, right? So a simple piece of paper, and I always refer to copy machines and our big network-based copiers in our schools. That to me has always been the anti-technology, because that piece of paper, that 8.5 by 11 that comes out of that, while it has good intentions, there's inherently no feedback built in, right? And so we experience this, right in front of our face in the spring, where if we based anything on 8.5 by 11 packets or anything like that, then inherently we lost that feedback, that connection with our kids. Too much time in between the intent and actual learning and checks for understanding. And so transformation right now is the opportunity to leverage all of the tools and resources that we have. You laid out, Dr. Hawkins, the plan for the day, and all 4 of those big strategies sets us up for true transformative learning experiences. If we are laser focused on actual learning and understanding and checks for understanding of learning, then we can move forward in big ways. And I think that the technologies that we have in place today are give us the fundamental resources to be able to target transformative learning.
Good. Tom, your thoughts on that same question?
I think following up Dr. Park, our transformation, granted, we started several years ago, and a lot of that is thanks to KDE and what they allowed us to do with NTI days. Several districts have been involved for several years, and I won't speak for them, but for Johnson County, we started transforming and changing the way we thought way back before 2014, but we started NTI in 2014. And so we've had a great trial run, for lack of better words, for the last several years. While we did get into a little bit of a crisis mode in March, with everything that come down, we were really pretty prepared for what was to come. We didn't know what was coming. Now, with that being said, we know that our NTI days were set up to, originally our design was to prevent loss of learning. And we had to have a shift in our mindset to a continuation and a new learning, and our teachers jumped right on board and started doing just that. And I think the key to that transformation, any transformation, really is around the people that we work with. So getting down in the weeds of our local district, we know and believe that it's vital for all of our stakeholders to have that voice in giving input and what they need, what they like, what they want. And for us, we've accomplished that through a lot of ways, really for several years, but specifically since March, including team meetings with our staff. Matter of fact, I'm here today at one of our schools having a team meeting, a school meeting, talking about a framework that we're pushing out, face-to-face conversations and really surveys to all of our people, our parents and students and our staff. Talking about the surveys, they were instrumental and have been instrumental in helping us design a framework that meets the needs of Johnson County. The district is currently rolling out a detailed framework for our administrators, teachers, our students and our parents, and really our greater community. All of our students will have a device when school starts. Those students who don't have access will utilize Chromebooks and Google Drive offline. And when necessary, they're also going to have flash drives with preloaded materials to use. And with that being said, we're offering a remote approach this year. It's one of our offerings. And we want to make sure that our students are accommodated and their parents. So teachers are going to be available daily during the day and after hours. For students who cannot attend a synchronous lesson, that lesson is going to be recorded and uploaded to a Google Classroom. And students are going to pick up a Chromebook at orientation, but also other resources, textbooks that they're going to need to receive a balance of online and offline instruction. We're also going to use Remind, which is just a purchase program for students with and without internet access. Those students without access, which we're about 9% in our district, so we're pretty blessed in our district, and they're going to receive instruction via that Remind through voice call. And in order for us to be ready to reach every learner in our district, our teachers, as I said, are currently preparing for both traditional and remote instruction. They're receiving a framework today at one of our schools. We're doing just a guided tour, a world tour of Johnson County schools, and we'll be preparing lessons. The teachers will, involving themselves in professional learning that will continue throughout the summer and throughout the year. That JC framework will continue to grow and build it, and our teachers will continue gathering resources. And we're just here to provide whatever we can to eliminate any roadblock for our teachers and our students that they can all be reached.
So if you'll allow me, I'll make an observation. Both of you have talked about basically setting the stage, the infrastructure that is in place both at the state level and at a progressive districts level. As we know, Kentucky has maybe the best digital infrastructure in the United States of America. Sometimes people forget that and we tend to take it for granted. But having every school wired and every person access to an email account, whether they be a student or a staff member, is pretty amazing. And the work that you have done in your district in Johnson County and that other folks in this region and across the state have done really puts us in a position that we have an ability to move forward. Because of time, I'm just going to touch this question, but I want to get to the third question because I think that's really where you've taken us to in your responses thus far. And for this question here, leadership, what causes a sense of urgency? I think if you could answer that briefly, and then we'll take a little more time for that last question. And Tom, we'll start with you.
Sure. So really coming from both a parent and a leadership perspective, the urgency of our students' social and emotional wellness, their overall health and safety, and their educational well-being are all at the top of our list of concerns. Also, that urgency is fueled by the uncertainty of society as a whole, economic status, health perspectives, and turmoil that our communities, our commonwealth, and our country is facing. Really, all of our people, I think they want and they need a plan. With that being said, we have to understand that plans are fluid, and they have to change based on what we learn daily about what's going on and how we're impacted. A lot of our urgency, I think, comes out of desperation, maybe, and a fear of the unknown. We desire normalcy and want things to be like they should. People want hope and security. They need to feel okay about where we are and where we're going. And I think just to help that, just a consistent, positive message and solid leadership is key for that.
Yeah. Marty, urgency?
So I wholeheartedly agree with build, the build of why this is so urgent for us that Superintendent Cochran just shared. I'll add a couple. I think that Kentucky is a state in general that we would look at our current opportunity in front of us and say this is hard, right? This is hard, and our teachers are working extremely hard. But we're not a state that would say this is too hard. So we're stepping up to the plate. We're going to swing as hard as we can. And I personally believe, we're in this statewide tour of digital learning design labs, because we do believe that this transformational element is all the digital connectivity in order to move learning forward. And so technology used to be a thing. Now it's one of the things. But all across the state, and specifically with KVEC school districts, what we know is that our school districts and our teachers are stepping up to say, I'm really good at my job. I'm really good. I'm a great teacher, and we can do this. And so now, what are the supports that we put in place? So the urgency also compiles because now our bumper lanes are wider. We have more waivers of things that we've never had before. So the landscape's changed a bit. It is super hard, and our teachers and our leaders are working as hard harder than they ever have before, and we know that, and we are as well at the state agency level. But these bumper lanes are wider, so now our sense of urgency is also trying to take into the idea of, I'm not throwing away our shot here. We're not going to throw away our shot to do this well, change the way we're thinking. And I would say forget change and jump to improve the way that we design, not just change for change's sake. We always, and we believe, and I'll add in, if it's okay, to the learning culture shift that, as teachers and leaders, we believe that we can positively improve the experience that all of our folks have, our families, our communities. And so I think that also builds to the urgency, because we believe that we are really good at what we do. If we didn't, then we would take a totally different approach, and we wouldn't see this across the state.
That's really good. And that does take us to that next slide, which is really what we're about today and over time in this region and across the state, is trying to figure out how we invest in people so that they have the skills and ability necessary for the world in which we live and will operate, even more so as time goes. And just a couple of parting thoughts from each of you about how professional learning may need to change in order to make us as capable and able as we can be to serve the needs of kids and communities.
Do you want me to kick off and then pass it over to Superintendent Cochran?
Yeah, that would be great. Oh, thank you.
Awesome. So I think that what's really important for us right now, and I love the way you stack the panel to have a school district leader who's digging into designing a model that I think Superintendent Cochran, you would say that you're not going to get it all right the first time. right? You've experienced that over and over again. And so we're going to try some things and fail. If we look at the design thinking framework and we empathize and then we define and ideate a bit, but we're going to constantly test and get better, right? And so when we think about the ideas of being engaging and effective, understanding equity of access, and that doesn't mean the same, right? That means providing the types of opportunity and access that is the right thing for the right kid at the right time. That's the personalization approach. And so we're going to dig in from a professional learning perspective, focusing on people. And we're going to design solutions at each district and school level that makes sense. We have a kind of an architecture that we think we have to hit every component as best we can. But the real work is launching the big ideas and then getting into some very explicit decisions that we're going to make at a district and school level to say, what's our solution for this idea? So I love how Superintendent Cochran expressed the ideas of having some live connections with teachers, that synchronous learning approach, along with some asynchronous learning approaches combined together. And so at every step of that way, as we work through, we've articulated and pulled together some formulas. There's not one right answer. There's a bunch of right answers, and digging in to get ideas and solutions to try out. And then if they don't work, move to something else. One example real quick, and I'll pass the mic over, is, working with a school district last week and the idea of synchronous connectors with teachers. So live instructional feeds back and forth with teachers and students at home. The idea of turning a camera on and for 6 or 7 hours a day, we can do that. That absolutely we can do. But to level that practice up, we would say, well, how about we plan some live, explicit digital interactions where we're not expecting a student to sit in front of a screen for a really long period of time, because we, as adults, that doesn't work for us. So experience it ourselves to figure out if it works for us first, and then try to get into leveling up that design every step of the way. And so we would push on another approach to that. And I think that's where we're going to be all throughout the state, working together, developing models, and getting better with every one of the big components of our plans moving forward. We think that there's definitely a linear approach to that.
Tom, you have 1 minute.
Oh my goodness. All right. I first want to say something Dr. Parker said. He's exactly right. Failing is imperative. If we're afraid to fail, we're never going to grow. And I think more than that, as leaders, we have to be willing to fail and be vulnerable in front of our communities to show that it's okay. And the most important, we have to model that for our kids. We have to teach them that failing is part of life, and it's where most of our growth comes from. The key to all that, I think, though, is failing forward and not falling back into the woe is me and the pity parties and feeling sorry for yourself. It's growth out of those failures, and that's where we want to be, and that's where our mindset has to be. So briefly, well, it's 9:30, Jeff. I'll just stop right there. How about that?
Well, I think that I wish that we had more time with you all, because I've learned a lot from listening to you and hearing you affirm some things I believed and point out things that I had not considered. So thank you very much. And I hope both of you will be able to join us throughout the rest of the day. One brief mention, I talked about the digital professional learning portal. There's a screenshot of the opening page up on the slide on the right-hand corner. The address is there on the left. And this really boils down to the fact that we want to create a space where educators can come to be learners, where they can come to be leaders, and mainly where they can come to be makers of solutions. And we hope, as we grow this and it evolves, that people will contribute what's working. And as Tom said, they will be able to point out what did not work so well and be vulnerable and be able to make that case. But today we have a rich menu and a rich agenda, and some really some more smart people who are going to be leading us in discussions about those 4 major topics. So thank you for everyone who is live and joining us. And for those who will watch this in the future, in anything you need from KVEC, please give us a call. And I'm speaking in this case for Tom and Marty. Thank you so much. And we look forward to what will come next. And now I'm going to flip this over to Dr. Desi Bowling and Bernadette Carpenter, who are going to take us through the Access at Home section of today.